most common method of selecting employees is the interview. In the interview, applicants can be questioned in depth about their background and experience. Since it's a face-to-face meeting, the interviewer can probe the applicant about motivation and attitude, issues that are difficult to get at from a study of the application blank or the resume. A selection interview usually follows a prescribed pattern. This pattern is useful because it means each applicant will receive the same treatment. The data that is generated by the interview will thus be a sounding of the applicant's qualifications and will not be unduly influenced by the method by which it was obtained. Let's take a look at the total process by which a selection interview is developed and conducted. There are several stages to the phase of preparing for the interview.
Job analysis. Determine required skills, knowledge, and abilities. Planning questions to elicit needed information.
An important part of preparation for the selection interview is learning about the job opening. Often, there is a job description which may have been prepared recently. The job description will inform you about job tasks and responsibilities. It will also list the skills, knowledge, and abilities required of the people who hold the job. If there is not a job description available, it is possible for the interviewer to conduct a job analysis. The job analysis involves a discussion with the person currently holding the job or with that person's supervisor. The interviewer seeks to determine the tasks performed, their complexity, the time spent on them, and the relative importance of each major task. Job tasks. Importance, complexity, time spent. Job tasks are usually very specific. Ideally, you will have applicants for a job that are already experienced in doing many of the tasks. But what if there is a shortage of experienced applicants, or you are selecting people for entry-level positions? Then you will need to take the job analysis one step further. It is possible to infer from job tasks the skills, knowledge, and abilities needed to perform the job successfully. The advantage of thinking of a job in terms of the skills or abilities needed to perform it is that such behaviors are of sufficient generality that you could reasonably anticipate job applicants will have some of these qualifications. For example, interpersonal skills are needed to perform many jobs requiring customer contact. Even though an applicant may never have held a sales job, it is likely that the applicant has demonstrated interpersonal skills in other endeavors. It will be one goal of the interviewer to find out just how much interpersonal skill the applicant possesses. Behaviors used in performing jobs. Skills, abilities, motivation, application of knowledge. The final step in preparing for the interview is the development of questions. It is through your questions that the applicants will be directed to give information about their background. The questions are designed to elicit information that can be used to evaluate whether the applicant has sufficient experience or relevant skills, knowledge, ability, and motivation to perform the job. Some typical questions are:
what is your educational background? What is your prior work experience? What has been your most challenging assignment?
Generally, questions are developed which will allow an applicant to cover their educational background, work experience, their outside interests and activities, and any accomplishments which are notable. But the chronological history of the applicant is only the beginning. The interviewer will want to probe the applicant for specific accomplishments related to the evaluation criteria for the open job. The interview is seen as an opportunity to gather information beyond what is available on a resume or application blank. While the most effective method of interviewing is the use of open-end questions to allow the applicant to do most of the speaking, it is also necessary to divert the interviewee to those areas which will yield useful information during the interview. The evaluation of that information will take place after the interview has been completed. The interviewer uses various types of questions to assure that sufficient and relevant information is elicited during the interview. Probing questions. Direct questions. Greatest accomplishments. Most satisfying parts of your job. Course grades. You will want to give the applicant some information about the job opening so that they know where to direct their comments. Furthermore, you will want to tell the applicant something about the organization and its career opportunities. Typically, this is done toward the end of the interview in order to inform the applicant or arouse the interest of stronger applicants. Once you have prepared your questions, determined the kind of information you will need and how you will evaluate it, and have reviewed the applicant's resume if it is available, you are ready to conduct the interview. Conducting the interview. Since your aim is to ask the applicant to do a lot of talking about their background, a good approach is to make the interview setting conducive to conversations. The interview room should be quiet, and interruptions should be avoided. At the start of the interview, a little bit of small talk is usually appropriate. This allows the applicant to get their bearings and will permit the development of some rapport between the interviewer and the interviewee. At the outset of the interview, ascertain the applicant's knowledge of the job opening. You may have to inform the applicant about the job before you can receive information about relevant background and experience. Physical setting is important. Seating arrangement, hold phone calls, quiet room. An interviewer's conversational skills are important in selection interviewing. The interviewer tries to get the applicant to do most of the talking, and the interviewer directs the conversation to points which will yield the most useful information. There are several techniques which are helpful. We have already covered the issue of question asking. To reiterate, open-end questions are best. They start the conversation. The conversation can be directed by the use of probe questions. Use probes to keep the applicant on track and to elicit more information on a particular topic. Additional information can be elicited from applicants by indicating your interest in what they are saying. Empathetic gestures such as you're reflecting back the emotional content of an applicant's comments, are very useful in sustaining a conversation. Other conversation-building techniques are nonverbal behaviors, such as nodding your head in agreement or smiling at the applicant when appropriate. While the applicant is talking, take notes. If you ask first, applicants will agree to let you take notes. Notes are very useful after the interview when you are evaluating the applicant. Interviewing skills. Questions open the conversation and maintain the conversation. Nonverbal techniques. Reflect emotions. Note-taking. The selection interview has a basic pattern. Although it can be modified in many ways, this pattern invariably includes inquiries about education, work experience, interests, extracurricular, and non-work activities. Often the resume or application blank will provide you with information on these topics. If so, use the interview to tie an applicant's experience to specific demands of the job. During the preparation for the interview, you identified behavioral dimensions related to successful performance on a job. For example, an accountant should have numerical ability, interpersonal skills, leadership qualities, desire for achievement, business-like appearance, as well as an appropriate academic background and credentials. During the interview, you could examine an applicant's record in depth to uncover evidence of these personal qualities or evidence of weakness in any of these areas. The interview is not a search for negative information, however. Each applicant will have strengths and weaknesses. As you go through an applicant's background, keep in mind the dimensions you will be using to make judgments about their suitability for the job opening. If you are not getting enough information to allow you to make a judgment, do not allow time to slip by. Go after the information you need by asking questions that will get at it. One note of caution, however. Do not be misled by an applicant who is exaggerating his or her qualifications. People may tend to exaggerate about their accomplishments. It is your task to obtain information which is factual, accurate, and verifiable. Education, courses, grades, accomplishments, major areas of knowledge. Work experience, skills learned, abilities demonstrated, leadership potential, supervisory role, indications of high motivation.